take you up on one.
Exactly.
He's gonna let you get up there and look silly.
Well, welcome to Faith and Finances. This week we are continuing on with with our study of Solomon. Now, when we left off, what had just happened to Solomon?
I wasn't here.
He was dead.
Oh.
He was dead. We're not worried about
The last
Solomon
thing that ever
anymore.
happens to anybody.
Yeah, we're not worried about Solomon anymore. No, he had passed on, and now we're starting to go through the fight for the crown. And this is a doozy, and it goes on for a little while. This is all the prelude to Elijah. This is all the prelude to the unification that's going to happen then. But starting in 1 Kings 12, 1 through 20, and I bet you didn't know that it's parallel in 2 Chronicles 10, 1 through 19. The new king. So, Solomon dies. So, who's the logical new king?
The eldest son.
The eldest son.
Mm-hmm.
Rehoboam. Rehoboam is an idiot. So, just want to kind of throw that out there. Just so we know. So, Rehoboam, they go to, it's called Shechem. It's a city where this must be like the rural city where they go to crown everybody, because everybody seems to go to Shechem to get crowned. So they go to Shechem, and Rehoboam's there, and Israel comes to him. And when I say Israel, it's normally like the elders of each of the tribes. They're all representatives, and they meet in like a little room, and they all come to him, and they tell him, it's like, your father has put us under hard labor, because what you didn't know was that this is where the temple was built, and this is where the palace was built, and it was tons of hard labor, slave labor for anybody who wasn't an Israelite, and it was just a really hard time. A lot got done under Solomon's rule, but a lot of it got done under the whip. So we're talking, this was hard times for Israel. Like I said, big, beautiful city, a lot of tired people. Okay? So the representatives kind of come to him, and they're like, you know what? Your father put us under such hard labor. Can you ease our burdens as king? So Rehoboam does do one smart thing. He says, come back and see me in 3 days, and I'll give you my answer. Well, in this time period, he does one other smart thing. He goes and he decides to bring the advisors that advised his father to find out what they should do. And his advisors tell him, they say, you know what? What you should do is go ahead and ease their burdens. Because if you ease their burdens, they're going to be your servants forever. Because they were with your father during the hard labor, how much more are they going to be with you once you ease their burdens? Good advice. I'm like, oh, that's great. He doesn't take it.
Mm-mm.
He goes and he goes and gets some bad advice. He goes to his friends. Now, this is what I kind of relate this to. I relate this to, have you ever seen you ever watch the Jersey Shore? I've seen one episode. There's some dumb folks on that show. But you ever noticed how one of them has this really bad idea and all the rest of them kind of confirm it? Well, yeah, this is about the same. He goes to his friends. And keep in mind that Rehoboam is the son of a king. So his friends are what? They're probably going to be privileged. They're probably going to be rich. So what their advice is, you know what? Don't ease their labors. Make it even further. You need to put more on them. And so he says, you know what? And for, like I said, idiot, he says, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. Right? So he says, okay, that's a great idea. So he goes to Israel, and Israel's like, and he announces this, that I'm going to make your labors even more than what my father did. And they're like, okay, later. And they leave. And to even put this point even further, he decides to call this guy, his name is Adoniram? I think that's right. Adoniram, something like that. But he's the, basically he's the organizer of labor for for Solomon, and now the organizer labor for Rehoboam. Well, Israel wants to bring their point home too, so they kill him on the way out. So they want to make sure they know, look, we ain't putting up with this. So then what happens? 1 Kings 12:21 through 24. Parallel in 2 Chronicles 11, 1 through 4. They raise up another. His name is Jeroboam. He actually fled Solomon and has been living in Egypt. He actually found out that Solomon died, so he comes back. Jeroboam is a noble. Most of what you'll hear about in the Bible, if you read, unless the Bible actually states that they're not someone of what we consider noble blood, and when I say noble, it's not, it wasn't the same kind of hierarchy like as medieval times, like you had lords and ladies and things like that, but it was similar. And it was all done through greater and greater families. Like when you hear about King Saul, he talks about being the least of his, least of the tribe of Benjamin. He's talking about his family. His family is the least. So it's kind of like, they still had like a makeshift hierarchy. So I use the term noble because it's something we can relate to, but he was from a noble type family. So they take him to Shechem and they make him the new king of Israel. All but Judah. When we were studying Solomon, when we found out that Solomon had turned away from God and done those things, remember he said that he would leave Rehoboam, the tribe of Judah, for David's sake. So what you're seeing now, that even Rehoboam even has anything to rule, is because of his father David's faithfulness. He still, in fact, the tribe of Judah will ride on David's coattails all the way through Jesus. David will have been the one who was faithful enough to keep things all the way through. That is bugging me. So, Rehoboam, in true form, said, that's fine. I'm going to get 180,000 troops together from Benjamin and Judah. Keep in mind, Benjamin and Judah, they're both side by side. They're basically like brothers. Sometimes like stepbrothers, but like brothers. And so they go on and they decide they're going to attack the other nations of Israel. And then we get a little old man, his name is Shemaiah. Shemaiah is a prophet of God. And he stops him. He says, God said this is my will. And I'm doing nothing more than fulfilling the prophecy that I spoke over Solomon. It's kind of interesting because at least they listened back then. Because then once he said that, they all went home. I can't.
Why can't we just say that now?
I can't get 5 people to go home. Yeah, I can't get 5 people to go home. He's
to
thinking
Washington and tell them to all go home.
Yeah, we're not going there.
Yeah, I would. Listen to me. Tell them to go home.
1 Kings 12, 25 through 33. But Jeroboam. Jeroboam. I'm going to call this the time of the idiots.
Well, he was an idiot.
Yeah.
There you
So,
go.
exactly. So Rehoboam is an idiot, and Jeroboam is also an idiot. So he has something happen to him that happens to all of us. He starts to get a fear of losing what he's been given. He's been given this crown. He's to rule over Israel, all but this one tribe. And you know what? You know what the problem with all this is? Where's Jerusalem? Jerusalem's in Judah. What's in Jerusalem? Solomon's grand temple that he's just built. So what's running through Jeroboam's mind? He wants it. Not just that, but you think about it. If the people want to go worship God, well, in this time period, the Ark of the Covenant is God. And the Ark of the Covenant is in the temple in Judah. So people are going to start going to Judah and go to the temple and worship, and Israel's going to turn away from it. This is what's running through his mind. And Israel's going to turn away from me, and I'm not going to be able to keep control. And so he has this huge fear of losing. Even though God has given it to him, he still has this fear that he's going to lose it. Come on in. Hello.
Hi.
Everything go good? Good, good, good. So he has this fear of losing this kingdom that he's just been given. And his kingdom is in Shechem. So he's still staying in the, I'm going to call it the rural cities. I'm not sure if it is or not, but that's what kind of everybody goes there to get crowned. But so he's in Shechem, not Jerusalem. There's no temple. There's tents in Shechem, and they still have altars and things, but not this huge grand temple that's been built. And so he sets up these golden calf idols in Bethel and Dan. And he also starts some other things. Whenever the Bible speaks of high places, it'll talk about, and they built in the high places. Whenever they say that, these were pagan idols, and they were put in high places, like a wooden post for Asheroth, who was normally associated with Baal, and then a stone pillar to associate with Baal. And these were just put in certain places. There was nothing, as far as those were concerned, there was nothing real extravagant about them. They were just posts, and they would worship the posts. They worshiped the posts. It's like worshiping a street sign, right? So, but he also decides that he's going to go ahead and just appoint pagan priests because he's doing all this stuff, so he's going to appoint his own priests. Of course, he's not worried about the whole Levi deal. He just wants he just wants priests. 1 Kings 13, 1 through 34. But, just like always, when you start doing things bad, when God's giving you something, you're scared you're going to lose it, you tighten your grip and you take God out of the equation, what does God normally do? Yeah, no, that. But first he's going to call you out. First he's going to say, you're messing up.
I was going to say, give it, take it away.
There you go. You're messing up. So it says a man of God comes. And he gives this long speech letting him know what you're doing is wrong. And he says, and you know what? And you're going to get a sign. He said that sign is that your pagan altar is going to be split and all the ashes in it are going to spill. Now, I talked about this last week, but I want to kind of go over it again. The Bible is great when it comes to understatement. We talked about last week that some of these pagan gods, when they make calves and things of that nature, sometimes they're just calves. When you're in the realm of Baal and Asheroth, but when they start talking about other gods, which they talk about as like Moloch and I can't remember the other one. Starts with a CH, but anyway, the altars are calves, but they're altars with their hands out like this, and there's a flame under the hands, and they go right up under them, and the hands of it are like this. And this is where they basically fry babies.
Awesome.
Yay!
This is part of this is part of that worship. Part of that worship is their firstborn children are sacrificed on this altar. So when the Bible talks about or even like with Solomon, he says, and he worshipped. And he worshipped meant and he sacrificed babies. And that's history. That's not coming from the Bible. Actually makes understatement. But if you research these different things, this is what they say.
CHI.
Sure, yeah, that's what it is.
I love Google.
So that's the king of Google over there. But he says, so when he says things like and spill the ashes, we're not sure if these ashes are from animals or if these are people ashes.
Right.
So when they say it, then spill the ashes. Well, anyway, so these things happen. And of course, Jeroboam points out, he's like, sees him, and when he does, one translation says he shrivels his arm up. Another one says it paralyzes it. I'm still thinking they shriveled that bad boy up.
That'd be the
I mean, you
coolest
know what I
way
mean?
to
I
say
mean-
it.
I mean, it's like Crypt Keeper arm, And of course then he drops back. Anytime God shows his power, he drops back, and he's like, "Pray for me." He was just getting ready to have the guy killed, and now he's asking him to pray for him. So he says, "Okay." So he prays for him, and he gets restored. But then, of course, he goes, "Well, come eat with me." First of all, you're just trying to kill me. I'm not coming to you anyway. But what he said was God told him not to eat, drink, or anything. In fact, the scripture states that he says, "I wouldn't come with you if you gave me half everything you have." It's because God told me to do something else. However, he gets up to leave. The Bible states there's an old prophet at Bethel. And this old prophet, he hears what's going on. He says, "You know what? I'm going to look for this guy." So he saddles up his donkey, and he goes and looks for him. He finds him, and then he says, "Come home with me and eat." The guy says, "I can't. I got to keep moving forward. I can't go to your place and eat because God told me I couldn't." So he lies to him. He says, "You know what? I'm a prophet of God too, and God told me it was okay." Now here's one thing I want to point out. When we talk about these things here, it's interesting, and I've been in church before, where people will come to you and say, "God told me this about you." And if you're a person that's in prayer and things of that nature, it should be a confirmation to you. That you're like, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I got you. God told me that." But if you've never heard it before, pray on that. Because this guy lied to him. He said, "Come and eat." He went to his house to eat. While he was there, God gave a message to the old prophet telling him that because he had disobeyed him, that now he would not be buried with his ancestors. Now I'm starting to realize that whenever God says something like that, it's a prelude that means you're going to die.
That's just a nice little bit of foreshadowing.
Exactly. So on his way, a lion comes out, grabs him, and kills him. Knocks him off the donkey that the old prophet gives him to ride down the road with. Interesting part about this. The lion does not eat him and does not touch the donkey. He just kind of stands there with the donkey. Kind of letting people know, "Yeah, I killed him." As people walk down the road. So then the old prophet says, "Well, I gotta go get this guy. He says, I can't believe I did this." Because you really think about it, it really is doing. You really think about it. So he's got to be feeling guilty. So he goes to go get him. And the lion don't kill him. He lets him take him, put his body, and then he takes him to a place and he buries him. But then he tells his son, he says, and this is why I say he feels guilty, because he says, "You know what?" He goes, "When I die, bury me with him. So you know where he is. When I die, bury me with him." So he's basically, I don't even get to get buried with my ancestors. Bury me with him, because at this point he's got to be feeling guilty. And Jeroboam's still going crazy. Just figured to point that out.
Just a little side.
He's still going crazy.
Meantime.
Yeah, exactly. I will say, as I read the Old Testament, it's like, this had to be the first soap opera. Because it's like, it'll be talking about something over here, and you'll be like, "Oh, wait a minute. But this is going on over here. Oh, but this is going on over here. But meanwhile, this is going on over here still." So we go to 1 Kings 14, 1 through 18. So we have a prophet. His name is Ahijah. I heard that on my audio Bible. That's how I know how to say it. So his name is Ahijah. And he's a prophet of God. Now what we didn't go over was, if because I can't go over every single thing. But this is the one who originally told Jeroboam that he was going to be the king over Israel, but not Judah. He told him that a long time ago. He did that through, I think it says Jeroboam has a cloak, and he takes Jeroboam's cloak off, and he rips it into 12 pieces, and he tells him that 10 of them are for him. And the reason 10 of them are for him is because of the tribe of Levi. So it's like Levi's basically, they're the priests. Even though they recognize the king, they're not necessarily a rule over kind of nation. But Jeroboam's son is sick, really sick, and Ahijah is also blind. Well, now he's blind. He's getting old. He's getting up there now. So Jeroboam says, "You know what? I'll get my wife to go in disguise. I'm gonna get her to go in disguise so that we can find out what's going on." Jenny, would you dress up in disguise and go for me?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she dresses up and gets in disguise to go see him. But you know what? Ahijah's a prophet of God, so the Lord gives Ahijah a heads up. He lets him know. He's like, "Hey, this person's coming. They're going to be disguised. You know who it is." And also lets him know what to tell her when she gets there. And of course, once she gets there, she gets to the door, and he just kind of shouts out. And Scripture actually states, he says, basically, he's like, "Hey, Jeroboam's wife, come on in." So just whatever time she spent making her costume, it didn't mean nothing.
All that hard work.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
She went to Michael's and everything.
Yes. Glitter, right?
I know.
I hate when that kind of stuff happens.
So he decided. So he spins this tale for them. Unfortunately, it is about destruction and death. Come on, you've been going crazy. You haven't been doing like you're supposed to. You've already been called out by the prophet of God, and you decided that you were just going to keep on going, and things are going to be hunky dory. Well, he gets told that when he dies, so will all the rest of his family. And, furthermore, the moment you, speaking to the wife, cross the threshold of your house, your son will die. What do they say? So that she goes back, and she crosses the threshold, the son dies.
Did she ever stop to think that maybe if she didn't go home?
Or go home and not into the door.
Well, you kind of got
Through the window.
but you also got to kind of wonder, too. Eventually it's going to happen. So if you stay away from home like 30 years,
He's gonna die.
you cross the threshold, then he dies then. So, yeah. But in 1 Kings 14:25 through 28, also in 2 Chronicles 12:1 through 12, Egypt, and remember the soap opera thing, this was going on with Jeroboam. Well, now this is going on with Rehoboam.
And now Egypt's invaded.
Exactly. So now Egypt's invading Judah. Why in this world would Egypt want to invade Judah?
Because they know what idiots on the throne.
That's probably a huge part of it. The other thing is what's in Judah? With tons and tons of gold in it. And those, remember that, what are they talking about? 350 of those really big gold shields that are all, they're all around the palace. Sorry. So, in the 5th year of Rehoboam's reign, the temple is ransacked. And not just the temple, the palace too. They ransack everything. I mean, they just go after gold and then just take it all.
Shiny.
Exactly. And they take those, and I pointed that out because of how big they say these shields are. There's like 350 of them, and I think I forget how many shekels each one of them says they weigh, but I think it rounds out to well over 100 pounds each. And there's big ones and small ones, and and they're all over the place. But they get stolen. And this kind of I think is more, when I think of metaphor, this is what I think of, because now it's like, oh, well, they stole all the gold stuff, so we're going to replace it with this bronze stuff. So you can look at it and go, where does the kingdom fall in? They had all these gold shields up. Everything was all great. All this stuff was in the temple, and now all of a sudden they're substituting the gold. And remember, Solomon's taken pay for just being wise, and the people around him paying tribute was like 22 tons a year of gold. And now they're substituting golden shields with bronze substitutes.
It's still shiny.
I guess.
Just not that shiny.
So, oh, how the mighty have fallen, right?
Well, you have wisdom and gold and idiot with bronze.
There you go.
There you go.
I was going to say insanity.
Always being nice.
So,
Mm.
so Rehoboam's reign started at the age of 41. He had a 17-year reign, and now he's dead. At this point, I would hope that Judah was throwing a party. But, so now we have the end of one of the kings of Israel. That's kind of where we're going to stop today. But, of course, next we're going to talk about Jeroboam, because, yeah, come on now. You know he's heading for a heartbreak.
I had a very nice image.
Uh-oh.
You know the movie Scrooge and the musical part
Uh-huh.
where at the end he sees, the future
Yeah.
and they're dancing on his coffin going, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think
What?
That's intense.
Yeah.
You'll get up in the skies for me. You'll
Sure.
find out what's going to happen to Taylor.
Sure. They're going to put her in a holding cat and they're going to cook her.
Nah.
To eat.
She's too old for that now.
I don't know.
Extra
Back in the day, though,
crispy.
when you were born, they would have done you.
Gotta make some gumbo.
That's right.
I think I'll have to say, while I was reading this and studying this, I think the thing that spoke to me the most was talking about his fear of losing, because that was a legitimate fear for him, and he was using he was using logic. If you really think about it, and when you have something, and you think of losing it, like I'll say a guy who's scared of losing his girlfriend, so he asks her to marry him. Well, logically, that's a good thing. But if you're scared of losing her in the first place, it's like, why should that even make a difference? So you look at it, it was a legitimate fear for him. And so he decided that the only way that he could ensure that he wouldn't lose it was to take God out of the equation. Because God had given it to him. So if I take God out of the equation, God can't take it away from him.
Oh, doesn't sound logical.
I mean, when you think about it, it's like kind of messed up logic. It's like, you know what? you gave me $5. I'm gonna shoot you in the head. You can't take my $5 away. But
That's East End logic.
yeah, a dollar.
Yeah.
East End.
That's right.
I can say that I live there.
That's where you're from.
So that's why you have all the swords.
Correct.
Yeah. And the guns. There's those two.